Welcome back to Mainstream PC, everyone. My name is Julian, and today I thought I'd do a very short video about a kit of RAM that I purchased recently and my impressions, and maybe do a little unboxing so you guys can see what it looks like, because I found very few reviews of this particular model online. The kit that I want to talk about is this DDR4 3200 megahertz CL16 dual channel 2x8 gigabyte kit from Team Group, a Taiwanese manufacturer, and it's their Dark Z line. There's also a Dark Z Alpha, which I believe is specifically supposed to be like for Ryzen, like the Trident Z Neo line, for example, which usually just means that there's a specific memory modules used. Usually it's Samsung B dies. But I don't want to give too much away about this. Let's have a look at the unboxing first, and then we're going to talk about some of the findings and the specifications that I found myself in my benchmarks. So this is the RAM in its original packaging, and I can tell you I've already unpacked it once, or unboxed it, whatever you want to call it. And there's nothing too fancy about this box. There's not a lot included, but that's pretty common in most, especially budget RAM kits. So there's a warranty card here, QC and warranty, and that's essentially it. Some specifications on the back. And that's about it. Yep. So the RAM kit itself, and we can see the design is, well, different. Oh, there's a sticker actually. I didn't even notice it was in that QC warranty card thing. The RAM itself is a very simple, but not bland design. It's not like Corsair LPX memory. But it kind of reminds me a lot of the G.Skill Ripjaw 5s that I used to have. And except for they were concave on the top and this is just flat. In terms of height, this kit is, I think, 4.5 centimeters tall. So yeah, it should actually clear with most air coolers. But it's something to consider. They're definitely higher than the PCBs, as you can tell here probably. You can see there's a good, I don't know, probably like 6-7 millimeters on top that are just there for aesthetics, I guess, because it's really not spreading heat or anything too much, I would say. Other than that, it's a single rank memory. Not sure if we can actually see it from the side. We can, I believe, if you look closely. There's only memory modules on this side. This is just attached. I'm not sure if this will show up at all. Here there's 8 or 4 plus another 4 modules. I don't really want to remove the heat spreader at the moment, but it's single rank memory. And that's about it to say on the visual side of things. Let me get back to my chair and then we'll talk about the specifications and what Typhoon Burner told me. All right, I'm back in the chair, and this kit ran me about $90, which isn't too cheap for memory with the specifications. If you're in the US, you can probably get Trident Z Neos for just $20 more, I guess. But here memory is quite expensive, or it has been over the last few months, particularly thanks to what other tech YouTubers like to call human malware. But also there have been, RAM's gotten better, but there have been supply issues going on for the last few years. So it's still it got better toward the beginning of the year, but now it's gotten worse again. But this particular kit that I managed to get, like with the timings that I saw on here with 3200 megahertz with CL16, I figured this would be SK Hynix CJR memory modules. But actually, as you can see, I'm gonna put it up on the screen. Typhoon Burner told me these are Samsung B dies. So I was initially very happy because I was like, oh my god, B die memory, I'm gonna overclock the snot out of this. Turns out it's B die memory, but it's definitely a lower bin B die memory, which kind of makes sense considering the price. Because yeah, why would you waste good B die memory from Samsung on a 3200 kit and then only give it certification for CL16? Should be CL14 if it's decent memory or good memory modules. These are still decent, and if you'd compare these to other memory modules for like a 3600 kit, this would make CL18 memory. And this kind of makes sense because what I tend to do for Ryzen especially, for Ryzen 2000 series like Zen Plus, 3200 megahertz usually is plenty because the memory controller on Zen Plus doesn't really do much higher anyway, like not well at least. But for Ryzen 3000 series or Zen 2 chips, that 3600 megahertz especially for the CCX to CCX latency with the Infinity Fabric, it makes sense to go up to 3600 megahertz to have a Infinity Fabric clock of 1800 megahertz. It's shown that it improves frame rates in games. It improves 1% lows in games. So what I tend to do is look for 3200 kits because they are significantly cheaper here, at least than 3600 kits, and try to get them to 3600 megahertz or close if possible, if they really don't want to run at 3600 megahertz, which most of the ones I've chosen so far managed. So this kit in 3600 megahertz, if you buy it new, runs at CAS latency, I think 18, 22, 22, 22, what was it? 40, 30, no, 42. So I overclocked this kit with the Samsung B die, which I was hoping it would do better, but as said, it's probably a down bin. I overclocked this kit to 3600 megahertz fairly easily, but going under CL18 was a no-go. I managed to boot a few times with CL17 with gear down mode disabled, and command rate I think 2T, but I could not get it stable. Like a memtest86 would throw errors frequently, I would call it. So on CL18 with, what was it? Cycle time was, for read was, I think 18, 20, prefetch or precharge 21, and RAS 40-ish, I think 40. So 18, 20, 21, 40 at 3600 megahertz got me kind of the best results. What I usually tend to aim for, particularly for gaming, is not necessarily like, okay, the frequency. I like it to be at the high frequency to have that Infinity clock at Infinity Fabric clock at 1800 megahertz for Ryzen 3000. And at the same time try to get my random read and write, or read latency actually on memory to under 17 nanoseconds. So in IDA, I got 68.6 or something around there. It's like changes from run to run, but it was under 69. Nice. I'm actually really happy with this kit, especially for the price. And this is kind of like what I want to tell people out there. It doesn't always make sense. Like if you're tech savvy enough to play around in the BIOS for, let's say, a couple of hours, you can save yourself a chunk of money. And it's like, I don't know, after doing it many times, it doesn't become as fun. But initially, RAM overclocking is quite fun. At least I figured it, or I felt it was. And you can squeeze like extra performance out for a kit that costs, like if I buy the Trident Z Neo kit, 3200 MHz CL 16 even, the bad one, so to speak, it already costs here, it costs me like 40% more than this kit. And if I'd go for CL, 3600 megahertz memory with CL 18, which is what I managed to get this kit to, I would pay 50% more, at least. And that's not even Trident Z Neo. For Trident Z Neos, I would pay, it's almost double, actually, of what I paid for this kit. So 80% approximately. So at that point, I'm not willing to, like, okay, yes, it's very certified by G.Skill or whatever, that it will run at that frequency. You only need to enable the XMP profile or DOCP with AMD motherboards, and it should run at that profile. But there's no guarantee for that either. I mean, it will run most likely, but I've had many XMP profiles that would still spit out errors running at their XMP profiles, because it's still overclocking, and it still depends on the CPU memory chip, whether it can really run the memory correctly without producing errors. So with RAM, whenever you overclock, and I mean XMP or manual overclocking, stability is, to me, the most important. If I have a system that runs 24/7 that I use regularly, let's put it that way, I want it to be stable. I don't want it to blue screen randomly. Just, okay, might blue screen once in a blue moon, but even that is too much for me. I want it to be 100% stable. So in the end of the day, I usually tend to manually overclock RAM anyway, if I'm going to use it in one of my systems. And even when I sell systems or I build systems and I want to reach a certain memory frequency, I don't rely on XMP. I generally tend to do manual overclocks and run, not IDA, memtest 86 overnight, do 8 passes. It takes 6 hours to do so, depending on the CPU. But you have a very high like certainty that your RAM is stable. There could always be like a solar flare switching one of your bits from a 1 to a 0, creating an error, but I mean, that's force majeure, right? We can't really influence that unless you're buying ECC memory. But for regular consumers, I still feel that going for 3200 megahertz kits right now is the better value option, even if you're running Zen 2 or Ryzen 3000 series. If you're just willing to invest a little bit of extra time. And a kit like this with Samsung BDI memory, downbinned or not, doesn't really matter. It does it well. It wasn't hard. It took me an hour to overclock this one to a stable overclock. I mean, granted, I knew what I was doing, sort of. Not memory overclocking guru or anything. And I didn't tighten sub timing. So I could have gotten even better probably latency on this if I would have tightened the subtimings, but since it was only on my test bench, and those settings only really make sense with a specific combination of hardware, I wasn't going to invest the time, because these will go into a future build and not onto my test bench. So I hope the video got a little bit longer than I expected, but all I wanted to say is this T-Force memory, other channels or news outlets or reviewers I've seen have gotten CJR SK Hynix modules on these models, or on their 3600 megahertz models. So I'm not sure if I was just really lucky. It's not like it's super lucky anyway. The CJR memories also overclock well, but I was quite surprised, let's put it that way, to see that there is Samsung BDI memory on here. And considering the price I paid for this, prices have skyrocketed since, I couldn't be happier, and I just wanted to share it in a video. I hope I didn't bore you guys too much. I talk a lot. It's a topic I'm passionate about. I've recently tested like 5 different RAM kits for different builds and other people. So yeah, it's just fun for me. So I hope you enjoyed this video to a degree. I hope you learned something maybe. There's RAM overclocking guides online. Corsair has a pretty decent one, which I would consider is like very newbie friendly. And I think it's called Ryzen 3000 series guide to RAM overclocking, and it's by Corsair. They talk about some of the technical aspects and the nomenclature and stuff, and abbreviations that I've used. I'll link a link to it in the description, because I think it's a pretty good entry for people who might never have done this. They have great screenshots of one BIOS, but they explain for different BIOSes where you can find all the settings. So have a look at that. I'm not paid by them, but credit where credit is due. I did enjoy their guide, even though I knew more about it already. And I hope you enjoyed this video to a degree. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. Sharing helps me out the most. If you're passionate about tech, or know people who are passionate about PC hardware, please share this video with them. Worst case scenario, I'll get a dislike, and I'd actually be happy to hear any comments. Like, leave a dislike and tell me what you didn't like about the video. And I hope to see you again next time. This was Julian with Mainstream PC. Cheers.